We are finally getting into the meat of this schedule here for the NFL season. It is week 12, and this is Snap the Pigskin. Hello, everybody. I'm Noah Clark. We're going to bring you some great stuff today. Got a lot of stuff to cover from week 12. The Rams taking first place in the NFC West. The Bucs losing to the Bills in a shootout, and all of a sudden, here comes a team that you will find out later. The Lions getting robbed on Sunday Night Football by the Philadelphia Eagles. The NFC North just got even wackier. And are the Chiefs finally frauds? They lose to the Broncos and right now are sitting outside of a playoff spot. Plus, bringing home the bacon and our Pigskin Primetime Picks. So let's get right into it here with our drive of the week, starting with the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. LA and Seattle, these two teams meeting for a chance to take first place in the NFC West. The Rams on a very good tear this year with Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, who potentially could be his last year with the Rams before they start to look at the rebuild, but who knows? And this was a great game. It's a great game. Rams win it in the end. Missed field goal, a game-winning field goal for the Seahawks could have given Seattle potentially the win and potentially first place in the West. And they lose. And not only that, it was a rough performance from Sam Darnold. 4 INTs in this game against the Seattle Seahawks. Did not have a very good day. Struggled throughout. And somehow was able to still cut that lead and still able to lose by 2. This is one of those games where the Rams, for Seattle, I don't think they're there just yet. We're starting to see Seattle. Seattle's played an incredible year. They've had an incredible season. But the one thing you look at from the Seattle Seahawks, and this is the thing that I have the problem with, is they've lost a lot of these big games so far. They've lost a lot of these big games. And here's another one this year that they lose. I mean, you look at this season so far, Seattle's been decently good, but they really haven't played anybody on their schedule that has had a record of 500 or more. And the only other team that they played 500 or more was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they lost by 3 to Tampa Bay. You also look, too, they lost to the 49ers, who are in the division in week 1, and and they lost to the Rams. And this loss to the Rams now puts them at 1-3. Excuse me, puts them at 1-3 if you count the Steelers too. They did win by 14, but they are 1-3 on the season against teams over 500 or more. And that's not a good stat. It's not a good stat. I know Mike McDonald really has done a really good job of getting this team back to where they need to be, and which is the standard of Seattle football. They're playing well on the defensive side. They needed somebody to come in on offense. They get Kubiak and Clint Kubiak, and now here they go. They're off and running. But the only problem is that I think this team is still a year away. I do think that this Seattle team is still a year away. They have the quarterback. They have the quarterback. They have the running game now with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in place. You have the wide receivers now. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba there. And Cooper Kupp, who's had a decent year, not like in Cooper Kupp standard, not in Cooper Kupp like all pro standards, but he's had a decent year. I do think this offense is still a year away. I think this team's a year away. They're trying to compete with the powers of the 49ers and the Rams. And both those teams right now are way better. Both those teams are way better because they have the star power. They have the star power. They're ready to go win. The playoff window is still open for them, especially, and for the Rams too. Their playoff window is still open. But the Seahawks, their playoff window is just beginning. Their playoff window is just starting. I think if you're Seattle, you look on the record and say, well, they're 4-1 at home. They're 4-1 at home. They're 7-3. There are 3 losses. They have lost to 3 teams 500 or more. And I just, I do think that they're still a year away. I think Mike Macdonald has got this team in the right direction, but they still need to figure out if Sam Darnold's a guy. I also think, too, in order to not have another Geno Smith situation, you need to figure out who the guy is going to be for the future for this team. Because I, as much as I love Sam Darnold, the one thing I do have with Sam Darnold is that he's going to get you enough wins to get you to the playoffs. But we've already seen in the playoffs, we saw it last year with Minnesota, when he gets to the playoffs, he struggles. He struggles pretty badly. And that was his first playoff appearance. This year, Seattle right now is in a spot to get to the playoffs. Can Sam Darnold be the guy to get you over the playoffs? I mean, is it another situation where it's like Geno Smith? Well, you can only the quarterback can only get you so far. Can only get you so far. And that's my concern. That's my concern. That's my question of, is this team good enough to get to a playoff game? Is this team good enough, or I shouldn't say get to a playoff game. Is this team good enough to win a playoff game? Because they're right there. They're right there. They're so close. I just think they need a couple pieces on that offense. They need a couple pieces on that defense to just kind of build up and get better. And they are maybe a free agent signing away, 2 free agent signings away from being that team. I just think it's very hard to judge Seattle at this point because you look at the other 2 teams, they both proven that they can win in the playoffs, and they both have proven that they can win these meaningful games. Now, moving from Seattle and talking about the Rams, I have to tip my cap or tip my glasses off to Sean McVay, because he has done a phenomenal job with what he's worked with. And Sean McVay right now is reaching like Hall of Fame levels, close to Hall of Fame levels, close to elite coaching, elite levels of head coaching. You look at when he took this job, Seattle, when he took this job, it was a rough job. You look at Jeff Fisher, they were struggling already, and he took that team to the playoffs his first year. They got to the playoffs. They were playing in a playoff game. And it gradually got better and better. And you look by 2021, in that first stint with all those guys, the Aaron Donald guys, the Todd Gurley guys, and Aaron, and the Cooper Kupp, the Robert Woods, those guys. And then on the defense, you get, you have obviously Aaron Donald, you get Jalen Ramsey. You have that first group of guys come in, and that first group of guys gets you to the Super Bowl. And you add Matthew Stafford at the end of that whole thing in 2021 to add the icing on, to add the cherry on top. And Matthew Stafford gets you over the top, gets you to the playoffs. So that was the first run. Now, you look over time, McVay, yeah, he struggled. I mean, he struggled. Everybody at some points were saying, does Sean McVay need to be fired? But when you look at the end results of it, Sean McVay, this is probably his second window, his second opportunity, his second bite at this apple of getting this Rams team to the Super Bowl. They have been outstanding this season. They have been outstanding this year. The offense has been really good this year for the Rams. And not only that, but the defense with Chris Shula has been really outstanding as well. And here we go again now for the Rams. This is now Sean McVay's next group of guys. You get the Jared Verses, the Brandon Fisks, and then you get on the offensive side. You still got Matthew Stafford, but you got the Kyron Williams, the Blake Corum, you got the Puka Nacua. Now you got those guys. You got the Cooper Kupp. You got the running game with Cam Akers, with the Cam Akers guy, with Kyron Williams. You're rebuilding. They're rebuilding basically what they had in 2021. And it looks fan-freaking-tastic. It looks fan-freaking-tastic. And the Rams don't get talked about enough this year. They just do not. And you look at this game against Seattle, it's another game where the Rams really showed out. And not only did they show out, they showed out and they showed that they could still be, that they're one of the top teams in the NFC. I mean, 4 interceptions on Sam Darnold in this game. He was just peppered all game long. I mean, 4 INTs. The Rams defense just absolutely made his life miserable in this game. Kyren Williams. Then on the offensive side, you look at it. Kyren Williams, 12 carries, 91 yards, a touchdown, almost at 100 yards. But what makes it also very exciting, too, is Matthew Stafford only had, 130 pass yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. And Puka Nacua was 7 catches, 75 yards. Their offense is legit. I mean, Sean McVay is going back to kind of the old school, like the start of McVay, where they're just basically saying, all right, we're going to run the ball. We're going to run it with Todd Gurley. We're going to get those guys, the ball quickly. We're going to get those quick passes. And then we're going to take the deep shot. And you see it here with this Rams team now. And it's looking really, really good. Whether or not they can compete with the Eagles, because we've already seen them compete. We've already seen them play the Eagles, and they lost. And they lost by, a blocked field goal, but it was closer. They lost close to the Eagles. And mind you, they were leading that game. So I do think if you're the Rams, you're in a pretty good spot right now. I mean, look at also too, the Rams here. Since week 5, their loss to the Niners, they lost by 3 to the Niners. They have won 5 straight games. They have just been on fire. They've won 5 straight games. 3 of those games, they scored 30 points or more. They scored 30 points or more. They scored 35, 34, 42. This last game was the first time since they played the Ravens where they didn't score more than 30 points. But you look at this season, just overall too, they've scored at least 20 points. This offense can go. And they won 5 straight. You got Tampa Bay and you got Carolina. And their season does not look particularly that bad down the stretch. Carolina, as I said before, you got Tampa Bay, Carolina, Arizona, Detroit, you got Seattle again, the Falcons, and the Cardinals again. They have to play Arizona twice. They have to play them in Arizona and then at home at the end of the season. But they're really in a good spot for the 2 seed. And it's going to be very hard for teams, I think, to beat them. I think the only team that I could see maybe giving it a shot at it is this game on Sunday Night Football and the game against the Lions. I think those are 2 games where if the Rams don't lose either of those games, I think they win out. I think they win out the rest of the season and they coast to the playoffs. But yeah, they take first place in the West. The other thing is too, as we look, as I'm looking at the playoffs, if you look at the playoff picture, the Rams would be sitting with the 2 seed, which means they would get a home playoff game. They get 2 home playoff games. At 8-2, they have the tie with the Eagles. However, the Eagles have the tiebreaker because they beat the Rams earlier in the season. And right now, the Rams, I will say this. If the Rams meet the Eagles again, that's going to be a very fun matchup. We saw last year how fun it was. So that'll be something to behold. Now, moving on to second down. However, this team, another team that right now is kind of struggling to find themselves, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers find themselves in a bit of a hole on second down, and they lose their second straight game. They lost to the Patriots and to the Bills, top 2 teams in the AFC East. And the Bills, they lost by double digits. Patriots, they lost by 6 in this game. Or excuse me, not 6, they lost by 5. I'm looking at the score. They lose both those games. And now you look at the AFC South, the NFC South, it is completely flipped on its head. And now the Carolina Panthers, yes, you heard me say it right. The Carolina Panthers are sitting at 6-5. They are they are tied. They're tied now for the division lead with the Bucks. And they could potentially snag the division lead. Now, Carolina, I will give credit to Dave Canales and his Panther team. When last year we looked at this Panthers team, I looked at this Panthers team with Kedrick, and I said, there's no way this Panthers team is going to be good. They're just not. They're going to be awful. And with all that, they've done, I mean, they get rid of Brian Burns, they get rid of DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey. You get rid of all those guys that were key players. You don't get a first-round pick out of it. And this year, the Panthers, Dave Canales, man, he's worked his magic. And you look at the front office too. I mean, they go out, get Rico Dowdle. They also go out and draft Ted McMillan for this offense, and he's done a pretty good job. And now you look at the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers so far have pulled off some massive wins. I mean, they had a big win over the Packers in Lambeau. They won a big game in Lambeau. And then they had a big overtime win against the Falcons. Both these games right now are must-win games for Carolina and for Tampa Bay. They have to, if one of these teams loses, if one team loses and the other one wins, because both these teams have very tough matchups this week. Carolina's got San Francisco on Monday Night Football, and the Bucs have the Rams on Sunday Night Football. By Tuesday morning, if neither of these teams win, the Bucs we could be sitting here again saying both these teams are still sitting tied. But if one of these two teams win, let's say if the Panthers win and the Bucs lose, Carolina's in first place in the NFC South. And it right now also, too, might I add, is a two-horse race. It is a two-horse race between the Panthers and the Bucs. Saints are out of it. Falcons are out of it. Michael Penix is done for the year with another ACL injury. Don't even get me started on that. But this is a race that is very, very interesting. And very, very interesting because Carolina last year, they were not a relatively good team. They were sitting in the top 10 in the draft. Now here all of a sudden, Dave Canales has turned this team around. They're at 500. They're at 500 on the year. They're winning. They're winning games. And not only are they just winning games, they're winning games, in a very gritty fashion. And they're winning games that many people would say last year's Panthers team, they would have never won. Now this year's Panthers team, it's a different story. You look at the upset over the Packers, that was a big upset. You also look to, they had a win over the Cowboys. They had a win over the Cowboys and an overtime win over the Falcons, which tough break for the Falcons. Second straight overtime loss. But I mean, Carolina, this team last year was sitting in the draft, drafting a top 10 player. And now here we are, they're 500. What a story from Dave Canales. What a story from this team overall. And what a just spectacular run that the Panthers on. And they have to win, and this is a big thing too. They have to win Monday night against the Niners. If the Bucs lose on Sunday night to the Rams, Carolina has a golden opportunity to snag the division lead from the Bucs. Now for Tampa Bay, this is and on the other side of it with Tampa, man, Tampa's got to figure out how to start winning these games. This is their second straight loss. The offense has not looked particularly that good. And this was one of the worries that I had this year with them losing Liam Cohen. Losing Liam Cohen to Jacksonville was very, very tough on the Bucs. And you look at how well they started the year. They started out, they beat the Falcons, Titans, Texans and Jets. They won their first 3. They lose to the Bucs. And then they win 2. They win a massive one against the Niners and the Seahawks. But since then, they are 1-3 in their last 4. And they have not necessarily, they've not necessarily been able to, keep pace with some of these teams. I mean, you look at it, the Patriots this year, they're having a phenomenal year. The Bills this year, obviously, you look at it, the Bills are trying to keep, pace with the rest of the AFC. And they got in a shootout and they just couldn't win it. And now here come the Rams, who have had a really good stretch, 3 games where they've scored 25 plus points in the last 3 weeks. They've scored, 30 in 3 of those matchups. How do you come into this game and have confidence? And it's on the road. That's another brutal thing too. It's on the road. How do you come into an environment and try and win there? And I know everybody says, well, Bucs fans travel well, and the Bucs fans travel well when they go to SoFi. I understand that. But even still, you got to win this game. They have to win this game against the Rams. Because the playoff picture could get really dicey for Tampa if they don't. And if the playoffs were to start today, if Tampa were to lose, they would drop from the 4 seed to they would be on the outside looking in. And if the Panthers win, Carolina is sitting with a tie for first place. Now, here's the other dicey thing that I think does give, Bucs fans a little hope. They haven't played the Panthers yet. They've not played the Panthers yet. They play them 2 out of their 3 games to end the season in December. And if Carolina can just get through this gauntlet, because they have the 49ers and the Rams, if they can get through those, maybe, there's life there. But, man, Carolina's got to win this game. Tampa Bay's got to win this game. Both these teams must win games for both. So that'll be just something overall to just keep an eye on and monitor. As well as our third down now, the Lions. Speaking of monitoring, somebody's got to monitor these refs. Lions got robbed on Sunday Night Football by the Philadelphia Eagles. Lions also did not play well this year. This has been the story this year, is who was going to take the biggest step back. And a lot of people said the Detroit Lions. And they said, why? Because you lose your offense coordinator, you lose defense coordinator, you lose a ton of your staff. Dan Campbell has to construct his entire staff, just build the thing from the ground up. And so now you look at this Lions team. Detroit, with a very big, must-win game, you have to win this game against the Eagles, and they can't do it. They lose 16-9 against the Eagles. Brutal stuff. 16-9 against the Eagles. They have to get it right. They have to get it right. Their offense has just been really rough. I think the other thing is, too, and this is not just the Eagles, because the Eagles' defense with Vic Fangio is outstanding. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the game. And how he's not got a head coaching job again at this point, I am shocked. But I think teams have figured out the Lions formula. I truly do. With Ben Johnson leaving, it does bring a big weak spot to the Rams and Dan Campbell's style of play. And Dan Campbell's style of play is they're going to run the ball. They're going to run with Jahmyr Gibbs. They're going to run with Dave Montgomery. They're going to pound the rock, and they're going to set the play action. And they're going to go quick, simple routes. And I think teams have kind of figured out how to stop that. And the way that they figured out how to stop that is you stop the run game and you shut down Gibbs and Montgomery and make Jared Goff beat you with his arm. And A lot of teams have figured it out this year. A lot of teams have figured it out. The Chiefs have figured it out. Green Bay figured it out. You shut down the run. The Eagles, the Vikings figured it out. If you take away the run, the Lions struggle to generate any offense. And let me just give you an example of this in the losses that they've had. So in all the losses that they've had this year, the Lions overall, their rushing stats in all their losses this year have been bad. You look at rushing, Green Bay in terms of rushing yards in week one, their week one loss. Green Bay in terms of rushing yards, they had 78. Detroit had 46. That was their week one loss. Okay, that was week one. They they just couldn't get the running game going, and they struggled, and they lost that game. Then you look at the 4 games. Their running game was, and you look, they have the 4-game win streak. They have the Bears where they put up 50. Jahmyr Gibbs gets 94 yards, 12 carries, and a touchdown, and the team overall rushes for 177 yards. And that's against the Bears. That's against the division-leading Bears. You get the Ravens, too. David Montgomery goes off. The Browns, they go off. The Bengals, they go off in this game for rushing stats. At least 100 yards plus in all those 5 games. And then you get to the Chiefs, and let's look at the Chiefs here. Against Kansas City, the Detroit Lions had 98 rush yards. Jahmyr Gibbs had 65 rush yards on 17 carries, and they lose the game 30-17. You shut down the run game. They shut down the run game. And then the last one, and then you go to the Vikings. They beat the Bucks. Hey, another big positive. Then you go and play the Vikings. 65 rush yards. 65 rush yards on 20 rushing attempts. David Montgomery had 40 yards rushing. He had 40 yards rushing in that game. And then the last one against the Eagles. Lions had 74 yards rushing on 24 attempts. Jahmyr Gibbs had 39 rush yards. Yes, he also led the team in receiving with 107, but I'm looking at the rush yards specifically. Not a good performance. And a lot of teams, and you look at all those games, they did not rush. In all of those losses that I just mentioned, in all 4 of those losses, the Detroit Lions have not ran for more than 100 yards. When they run for more than 100 yards, they win the game, and they not only win the game, they win the game handily. This running game is very much a spot where if you're Dan Campbell, you've got to figure out how to change it. Because I know he's the play caller now, and a lot of teams I know Dan Campbell. We're going to run the ball, we're going to pound the rock, and you can't say anything about it. We got 2 studs at the running game. That's great. But teams have figured you out. They have figured you out because you look at Jared Goff. Now you have to make Jared Goff beat you with his arm, and this has been one of the issues this year that the Lions have really struggled with. Is Jared Goff and just throwing the football. When he gets pressured, and we've seen this now, when he gets pressured, he struggles to deliver the football. And he struggles to find those certain routes. And if you can have him sit in there for more than 3 seconds, you got it. But the running game this year for Detroit has been one of the bigger weaknesses to this team. And I hate to say it, but it is brutal. It's brutal for Detroit. I mean, and now instead of sitting in second place or first place in the NFC North, now you sit in third place in the NFC North on the outside looking in of a playoff spot. And to make this even wilder, the Chicago Bears, yes, the Chicago Bears are in first place in the NFC North. They only have 3 losses this year. Ben Johnson's done a really good job with his Bears team. Their first 2 games, however, they lost to the Lions. They lost to the Vikings. and they lost to the Ravens, 3 teams over 500. And Willie and the Bears too. I mean, the Bears are kind of like this year's Vikings. When they play any team over 500, they just fold. But enough about the Lions. I do want to talk about the Eagles a little bit. And I want to talk about, well, first of all, before I jump into the Eagles too, the Lions, as I stretch, absolutely got robbed of a chance to go win the game. Bad pass interference call at the end of the game to give the Eagles a chance to close the game out. For so many reasons, this is like obvious, and this is obvious, like example 1A, underline, star, like everything. This is why they need either full-time refs or you go to virtual refs. Because of stuff like this. Because of bad calls like this. And because of bad calls like this. Now you're ruining the game. And they need to reevaluate their officiating. Because, like, I don't know how you can call that a pass interference. Remember last week, too, I mean, you even look at it, especially the Eagles. The Eagles this year, when they ran the tush push, Roger Goodell said they were going to call it more. They were going to call it more in the tush push. They haven't called it more in the tush push. And you look at it in the Monday night game the week before against Green Bay, there was bad officiating in that game. And going into this game, bad officiating in this game, especially at the end. Like the last 2 minutes of the game, you should not be a deciding factor where the refs get involved. And that was a bad deciding factor. And I feel bad for the Lions. That's just my 2 cents. For the Eagles, and now jumping into the Eagles, Philadelphia, man, I gotta tip my hat to the Eagles because they have been really solid and they've been really, really good at making offenses' life miserable. And it starts with that defense and that front four. You know, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis in the interior. The trade acquisition of Jalen Phillips been outstanding. And it's just, and on top of that, to the secondary, you have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean on the defensive side. And then you have the linebacking core, Nakobe Dean and Jahad Campbell, now the rookie. This Eagles defense is really legit. And we've seen it now the last 2 games. They do not let teams really dictate how the game's going to go. They just don't. And that front four is what really causes problems. You saw it all game long Sunday Night Football. Jared Goff, man, he was struggling. And Monday Night Football, Jordan Love, he was struggling to try and find anything because that front four was just getting after both those guys. And I give credit to Howie Roseman. Man, such steals in the draft. You get not 1, but 2 all-pro defensive linemen to replace in that edge, in that interior. And against an offense like the Lions, it's very high-powered. You look at last year, they were very, very high-powered. To hold them to 6 points is really impressive. And then on top of that, to hold the Packers to 7 points is really impressive. I do think this Eagles defense is going to carry them again. It's going to be another one of those years where the Eagles defense carries them again. The offense makes their plays when needed, and they'll win them these games. We've seen it now the last couple of weeks. We saw it on Sunday where the Eagles, all they had to do was just make 1 or 2 plays. All Jalen Hurts had to do was make 1 or 2 plays, and that was it. That was it. Like, the defense does the rest. So I am very curious how the rest of the season fares for the Eagles. The Eagles have already won the division. They're going to be first back-to-back, division winner in the East in a long time. And you look at the stretch that they have down the end of the season. It is very easy. They have the Cowboys coming up next week. Dallas's offense has been very good this year. They're not probably going to make the playoffs. If they pull off a big win against the Eagles, that's huge for a lot of things. They have the Bears on Black Friday, which will be very interesting how the Bears will fare. The Chargers, Raiders, Commanders twice, and the Bills. I do think you look at this Eagles team, they're going to be really, I think they're going to just coast. They kind of control their own destiny at this point. They have the 1 seed. And it is going to be very hard for teams to beat them. Very hard, especially in the defensive side when Vic Fangio is bringing pressure and he's disguising looks, and you've got all this star talent on the front and the linebacking core and the secondary. It's very hard. It's very frustrating. Can someone figure it out? Maybe the Rams. Rams did put up a fight against the Eagles. Maybe they'll figure out a way to do it again. But who knows? Eagles right now looking still like the best team in the NFC and maybe the best team in the NFL. I mean, their defense right now is an all-worldly defense. And they have really kind of not stopped. They've not stopped. So, 4th down. We're moving on to 4th down. Last one here. The Kansas City Chiefs. This is one of those ones where if you're looking at the title of this, the Chiefs finally might be frauds, lose to the Denver Broncos. It's only a matter of time before that devil magic wore off. Kansas City this year has been absolutely awful. Awful. They lose a brutal game to the Denver Broncos in another close win by Denver. Denver right now well out in front of everybody in the AFC West. Well out in front of everybody. And Denver has the Commanders. And Denver has the Commanders. They have a bye this week, so they have the Commanders on Sunday Night Football. But then they have the Raiders. They have the Raiders, the Packers, which will be very interesting. Jaguars, Chiefs, and Chargers to close out the year. They right now, if I'm looking at this Broncos team, man, they right now, and I talked about this at the beginning of the year, look like one of those teams that just, it's the same thing with the Eagles. They make a few plays here and there and let the defense hunt. And the biggest thing this year for the Broncos is their 2 additions of Dre Greenlaw and Teliona Ufunga. I said this with Kedrick. I said when they added those two guys to that defense, they're a scary defense. Immediately makes them a scary defense because Dre Greenlaw, outstanding linebacker, Teliona Ufunga, outstanding safety for this group, outstanding safety, and a phenomenal safety when healthy. And this defense under Vance Joseph, they were phenomenal. They were really good last year. This year, they've really taken it up a notch. And let me just give you some of the numbers for the Broncos. The Broncos right now, 3rd in total yards allowed. They only give up on an average 274.4 yards per game. And they lead the NFL in sacks. And it's not even close. They lead the NFL with sacks with 49. The second closest team is the Falcons with 34. And the third closest team is the Pittsburgh Steelers with 33. The Broncos this year, this defense has been absolutely feasting on quarterbacks this year. Absolutely feasting on quarterbacks. And that has been one of the biggest successes to why this Broncos team has been so good this year is because of the defense. And you give Bo Nix a couple plays. You give Bo Nix a couple plays here, a couple plays there. He's going to gash you. And we've seen it already this season. You also look too, Nick Bonito is 3rd in the NFL with 9.5 sacks. I mean, he's their leading sacker. He's their leading guy in sacks. And that is impressive stuff from Denver. And whether or not the Broncos can finish down the stretch of the season, because that's been the one thing that has been very concerning about Denver is they're winning these close games, and they're winning these games, but they're winning these games close. And when you get to the playoffs, like, you're going to play a lot of the top competition, and teams are going to expose you. Playoffs were to start today, though. Denver would have the 1 seed. The Colts would have the 2. The Patriots actually would have the 2 seed. Denver is very good. This defense is scary. Very, very scary. What's scary, though, on the other side of it for Chiefs fans, not making the playoffs and not making the playoffs in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era. Since Patrick Mahomes has came here, the Chiefs have made the playoffs every single year. They've made the playoffs every single year. And they suffered a brutal loss to the Broncos. And might I add, too, they have been really bad this year, just overall. And I've been kind of going back and forth with the Chiefs of, are they a good, with saying, they win a game, and I said that's the Chiefs, that's the kick in the pants that they need to get themselves going, get them on the right track, and then they lose a game. And it's like, man, Chiefs just can't get it going. I mean, you look at it, the Chiefs will win. They've done this already. They lose the first 2 games of the season. They win the next 2. They lose a brutal one. They win 3. And I'm thinking, and then after that, they lose 2. And poor Kansas City, I mean, they're sitting really in a rough spot. You look at on the year in division play, they're 1-2 against teams in their conference. They're 2-4. They are just sitting right at 500. They would be out of a playoff spot. Which is not good. Not good at all. And even, too, the Ravens are sitting on the outside looking in. But Baltimore, as I've said, Baltimore is creeping up. They're creeping right behind the Steelers. They get Lamar coming back is so huge. But Kansas City, man, I don't know what you can do more than say, other than say the Chiefs are frauds. Chiefs are frauds. This year they don't have it. They don't have it this year. I think if you're Andy Reid and this team, you got to figure out something on the offensive side. They've massively underperformed this year with Mahomes. And this is because, and this is also too, you look at it, you have Xavier Worthy back. You didn't have Rashee Rice for the first 6, for the first few games of the season. And when they got Rashee Rice back, he's been very productive, but it's just the Chiefs this year just can't seem to get it to click in some of these games. And you look at the last 2 games that they've played, man, Kansas City just can't get it going. They can't get it going. I mean, you look at it, 28-21, they lose to the Bills. 22-29, they lose to the Broncos. They're losing these games. Yeah, close. But their offense really hasn't, their defense, their defense is keeping them in games, but their offense still is trying to search for answers to try and be the world beaters again. I just don't think that they have it. I don't think that they have it. And now, if you're the Chiefs, and I say this, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, if you're Brett Veach, and if you're Andy Reid, this is going to be a tough conversation if they don't make the playoffs. It's going to be a very tough conversation going into this offseason. And we'll get more to that when the end of the season comes, because Chiefs still have chances. I have a chance to still make the playoffs. But there will be some tough conversations, and we'll talk more in when we get to the offseason. But I do think that they have to get this right. They have to figure out, how can we, stay in the playoff race? How can we stay in the playoff race? Well, I'll tell you what, and I'll give you some good news. The Chiefs still have a chance to be able to change their destiny. They have they still have the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Raiders that they all still have to play. If they can win and they can get that turnaround going, maybe there's a chance that they can, get a playoff spot, sneak into that wild card spot. And the other thing is, too, is the Chiefs, you can't lose another game. You just can't. And they have the Colts this week. If they can't beat the Colts in Arrowhead, that is, I honestly think that's the nail in the coffin. Just boom, boom. Nail in the coffin for Kansas City. They might be done. But yeah, man, Chiefs are frauds. Chiefs are frauds. I know Sam Jamini's not going to like when I say this, but they might be frauds. They maybe miss the playoffs. And what's even wilder is that the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Lions all could miss the playoffs. Actually, no, that's wrong. Not the Bills. The Ravens could miss the playoffs. Baltimore, I do think they're going to turn it around. But Detroit missed the playoffs would be something because they last year went from the divisional round to miss the playoffs. That'd be a huge drop-off for that Dan Campbell squad. So, yeah, does it for us for our drive of the week. Moving on now to bringing home the bacon and talk about this guy who's torching it. Had and my fiance, she has this guy in his fantasy team, and he's been on her bench. He's been starting her, or she's been starting him the last few weeks. Hasn't been able to really get anything going until this week, where he went off. Talking about Mr. Bryce Young. 31 of 45, 448 pass yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and an overtime win over the Falcons. Bryce Young was slinging that rock, man. And he was slinging that rock. And you got to give Bryce Young credit. And I said this too. Give the Panthers a lot of credit and give Dave Canales his flowers. He has done a phenomenal job in getting this team turned around. Because where you look at where they were at with Matt Rule, it was not good. Things were not looking bright. And he has all of a sudden turned that Panthers team into a winning franchise again. Something that they've kind of desperately needed. And given them some hope. So, congrats to Bryce Young. You are on the slab of bacon. And now moving forward, we go to our Pigskin Primetime Picks. We got a good slate this week of games. Especially with a Monday night and a Sunday night, with Sunday night, Monday night. We start with Thursday Night Football. Bills at the Texans. Thursday Night Football. Josh Allen going up against Davis Mills. No C.J. Stroud for this game, and which is why I got the Bills by 10. I think Buffalo keeps it rolling. I think they win on Thursday Night Football. No C.J. Stroud is brutal. The Texans, too, man, their offense needs to figure out how to score some points. It's been a brutal year. So it may have to be a change in offense coordinator. Who knows, once again. But Bills by 10 in this game over the Texans. Now moving on to our two big games, Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football. Starting with Sunday Night Football, the Bucs going up against the Rams in this game. I have Rams winning this one by 7. I think Tampa Bay, they are needing to do some soul searching, and I think they're going to drop another game here. I think the Rams are right now one of the hottest teams in football. They have not lost yet in a long time, and we're going to show it again on Sunday Night Football. I do think this is going to be one of those games where it will potentially get into a shootout. I think the Rams are going to come out victorious in this game. I think they're going to win by 7. I got the Rams in this one at SoFi. And then the last one here, Monday Night Football. And this is a very interesting matchup. The Panthers at the Niners. Two teams right now fighting for a playoff spot. Carolina, if they win, they are going to be in the driver's seat in the NFC South. And for the Niners, they're still keeping pace right now. They have that 7 seed, and we've seen the Niners in the playoffs. They are a very dangerous team. You do not want to underestimate this San Francisco 49ers team. They are tough. And I got Niners by 10 in this game. I think the Panthers, they're going to run into a wall here. As much as I hyped the Panthers up this whole show, got to bring them back down to earth here, and I got to give the Panthers, a little bit of taste of humble pie. I think they lose by 10. I think the running game gets going. I think Brock Purdy starts to heat up a little bit. They had him last week in the game, in the win over the Cardinals. I think he starts to get back to his normal self, and I think he starts to tear it up, and I think he starts to have a phenomenal performance down the stretch of the season. And with that, that does it for us. Tune in every week to listen to Snap the Pigskin or watch Snap the Pigskin on YouTube. Please give us a like and subscribe, or listen wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts, and much more. And for those of you listening and watching, thank you so much. We cannot appreciate all of you done. We're getting close to our 100th episode, our 100th episode, because I checked the numbers earlier this week, and we are very close. I think this is going to be episode 96, 97. So we'll have to do something for the 100th episode. But next week, week 13, and it gets very interesting. We're going to recap week 12 and go into week 13 with 4 weeks left to go, 4 or 5 weeks left to go in the regular season. This is going to be a very interesting race down the stretch. And plus, we will talk about Thanksgiving Day matchups because there are some very big ones coming up, especially in the NFC North. So be sure to listen next week. For those of you that have been watching and listening, I'm Noah Clark. This has been another edition of Snap the Pigskin.